guys, it's Tina and I am back, and so are you guys. So how are you guys doing? You good? You good? All right, you ready for this video? Okay, so I went ahead and picked up the Pat McGrath Labs Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity eyeshadow palette. You know Auntie Pat, she's very out of this world and she is all about opulence, okay? So I picked this palette up. This is her new release for holiday. There are also 3 quads. I'm actually wearing one of the quads now, the only one that I picked up, which is the Interstellar Icon. So there's a get ready with me video featuring this look. You will see that coming up. But this video is all about this mega Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity palette. So we're gonna go through the swatches for this palette. I'm also gonna show you various looks, and I'm pretty much gonna use every single shade on my eyes just to show you how they apply. And then we're gonna wrap up with my final thoughts and would I recommend this or would I tell you to sit this one out? Well, you're gonna have to wait to hear about that at the end, but I'm gonna leave timestamps down below in case you want to jump around. You know how we do with these long videos. So again, we're gonna do swatches, a few demos, and then we're gonna give you my final thoughts, but I will leave the timestamps down below. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and start out with the swatches. These swatches will be done on my bare arm. I'm using my fingers and I'm not using any primer at all. So this is just true to color swatches to give you an idea of the texture of these eyeshadows and also to give you an idea of the color payoff. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So for these swatches, I'm gonna go in columns instead of rows, since the first 2 columns and the last 2 columns are from the Star Wars collection and the center 2 columns are brand new. That way we can keep it organized and you can differentiate between the brand new shades and the shades from the Star Wars collection. So the first 2 columns are from the Dark Galaxy Mothership eyeshadow palette from the Star Wars collection. The first shade up is Saturnalia, which is described as a chromatic crimson with a pink flash. This is a beautiful shimmery crimson red, which means it has a little bit more warmth to it, a little bit of orange, and it has micro fine pink glitter. It's really beautiful, applies really smoothly. Then we have the shade Venomous Void, which is our first matte, and this is described as a mid-tone magenta matte. First of all, this feels very smooth to the touch. It's very creamy when you're swatching it with your fingers, and it is building up really nicely. This is a deep eggplant purple shade and it deepens up a little bit around the edges. I don't have primer on my arm, but you can see that it darkens up just a touch, but it builds up really smoothly. It's not skipping at all. Then we have the shade Cosmic, which is described as a diamond sparkle pink. This one feels a little bit soft to the touch, and it is definitely a sparkly, beautiful shade. This might not be one of the special shades from Pat McGrath, but it definitely comes off as one of the special shades. It's a sheer peachy gold base with beautiful iridescent pink sparkle. That is gorgeous. This is going to give you more of a sheer finish, so you'll want to use that as a topper shade. Then we have the shade Bronze Nebula. This is described as a metallic golden bronze. This shade again feels very silky to the touch, and one swipe, guys, look at that pigmentation. This is exactly what it says. It's a golden bronze shade. It's really gorgeous, really smooth. I really like that one. Then we have Odyssey. This is described as a lilac taupe with pink sparkle. I'm gonna build this one up just a little bit. It is gorgeous as well. This one is like a muted mauve taupe shade. It has that lilac or very pale purple sparkle to it, but the base is a taupey bronze shade, which I actually really like. That is a really pretty shade. And then last in that second column is Smoked Amethyst, which is described as a blackened aubergine with pink sparkle. All these shades feel very soft and silky when I'm swatching them. This is a blackened purple shade with purple, pink, and gold sparkle to it. Really stunning. So here are the first 6 shades from the Star Wars Dark Galaxy palette. These are the first two columns of the palette, and so far so good. All these swatch beautifully. They're very smooth, and they're different formulations here. We have a matte, we have a sparkle, and we have a few shimmers. Moving on to the middle two columns, which are the brand new shades in the palette. So we'll start out with Major Mahogany, which is described as a warm mahogany matte. This one is a beautiful dark rich mahogany, which is a red based brown. And this one feels a little bit gritty to the touch, like I could feel the pigments in it. So be mindful of this one. This one feels a little bit drier. It's not as smooth and creamy, but the pigmentation is definitely spot on. Then we have the shade Fuchsia Shock, which is described as a fuchsia purple shimmer. This one I built up a little bit just to get a full swatch, but of course you wouldn't be using this much product on your eyes. This is a really smooth shade and it's gorgeous. It's a bright fuchsia purple shade with a little bit of a pink flash, really stunning. Then we have the shade Dragonfly, which is described as a warm gold metallic with a blue-green flash. This one is a red-brown base with green and blue shimmer to it. It looks a little bit greener in the camera, but as I shift you can see a little bit of the blue in this. So this reminds me of like a blue-brown pigment where you'll see the shifts of color. But it's a gorgeous shade, but I know a lot of us have that kind of shade. Then we have Lunar Champagne, which is a warm champagne shimmer. This one actually is taking some building up. It's not as smooth and creamy as the other shades. It doesn't just go on smoothly in one swipe. You kind of have to press it and layer it to get it to really even out. So far, that's the only shade that seems like it might be a little bit tricky and is probably better used damp. Then we have Megabyte, which is described as a deepened khaki green shimmer. This one is a stunning medium khaki green, or more like an olive green to me, with golden shimmer. It's really smooth and it layers up pretty nicely. Then we have the third and final matte in the palette, which is Venusian Orchid, which is described as a pink matte. I didn't really pick up a lot of that color, so I'm gonna go back in and build it up. This one is a medium tone muted rose pink shade. Builds up pretty nicely. It's not my go-to shade, but if I had to do a pink, I guess I can do that muted one. But it feels really smooth. It's smoother than the mahogany shade. So here you have those 6 new shades in the palette. We have 2 new mattes and 4 new shimmers. And the only one so far that has given a little bit of issue is that Lunar Champagne. It just needs a little bit of building up to smooth it out. It comes out a little bit patchy as you apply it. Now let's move on to the final 6 shades in the palette, which is from the Galactic Gold Mothership palette from the Star Wars collection. And we'll start out with Violet Void, which is described as a deepened violet with pink flash. This one feels like a satin shade, almost a matte shade, and it has pink glitter to it. It's really sparkly and pretty, but I feel like it might buff out to a darkened purple matte based on how it swatches and how it feels. Then we have the shade Bronze, which is described as a brilliant metallic bronze. Not only is this from the Galactic Gold Star Wars palette, Bronze was also in one of the 6-pan palettes, so it's a repeat from Subversive Metamorphosis. Then we have the shade Galactic Gold. This is described as platinum with golden chartreuse flash. This one is a little stiffer and harder pressed in the pan, and it applies a little bit more sheerly. It is a beautiful light golden champagne with a hint of like a chartreuse greeny minty flash to it. Really gorgeous actually. Then we have the shade Gold Standard. This one is described as a luminous 24 karat gold. This one is also found in the Mothership 10-pan palette Decadence, which is Mothership 4. And I believe this was also available as a single. This is a gorgeous yellow gold, and this is just one of her signature gold shades, so I can see why she's repeated it a couple of times. Then we have the shade Electron, which is described as a rose bronze with a glittering blue flash. This shade is a muted fuchsia rose shade with purple and blue sheen to it. It's really stunning as well if you're into these kinds of pinky shades. And then the last shade is Corruption, which is described as a fiery bronze duochrome. This is a beautiful deep bronze with a rosy red sheen to it. It's really gorgeous. It's a stunning shade. Corruption is also a repeat shade. It's from the Mothership 6-pan palette Sublime Bronze Temptation that was released for holiday a couple of years ago. So here are the final 6 shades in the palette. Again, these are from the Galactic Gold Star Wars palette, and there are 3 repeat shades here: Corruption, Gold Standard, and Bronze. So if you have all the Mothership palettes, you're gonna have some repeat shades. Thankfully, I didn't get the Star Wars collection, so I don't have the 12 Star Wars shades, but I do have those 3 repeat shades from the Galactic Gold Star Wars palette that are in the other palettes in my collection. So here you have it. Here are all 18 of the shades from the new Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity Palette, with the first 6 shades and the last 6 shades being repeats from the Star Wars collection, and even 3 of the shades in the last 6 are also repeat shades from the existing palettes in her lineup. The majority of these shades are very smooth. They apply really nicely. The one matte that does feel a little bit dry is Major Mahogany, and the 2 shades that are a little bit tricky would be the 2 champagne shades. You have to build those up to get the color payoff. And then we have the 1 sheer shade that is more of a topper shade. But here you have it. These are all the swatches, and I think they are overall all beautiful. This is a stunning holiday palette. Alright guys, so we're gonna start out each look with my eyebrows already filled in, and I also applied my eyeshadow primer. So I'm using the Makeup by Mario Master Prep and Set in the shade Deep. So I applied both the shades mixed together to my eyelids, and then a little bit of the powder just in my crease area to set that down. And we're gonna start out with a pink look. I am not the biggest fan of pink, but you guys have been telling me to get into it, so that's what I'm going to do. And we're gonna play around. I think we're gonna keep these looks pretty simple though. We're probably gonna use 3, maybe 4 shades maximum. There are not a lot of mattes in here, so the base color won't be a lot different. It's really the shimmers that we have to put to the test. So I'm gonna start out with the shade Venetian Orchid, which is the matte dusty pink. And I'm just picking up a bit of that on my Sonia G Detail Pro Brush, and we're just gonna quickly get a wash of that in the crease line area. Just a little wash. That actually applies really well just to give a little hint of color. I don't want anything too dark or too intense in that crease line. Then we're gonna go in with the second deeper matte in the palette, which is Venomous Void. And we're just gonna apply that color on that outer V area using my Sonia Kashuk crease brush, and lightly build up the color and blend it into the crease. And I'll lightly clean off my brush and go around the edges. I don't really want too much intense color with this paint. Now let's go in with a touch of Major Mahogany, and I'm going in with an even smaller crease brush. This is the Smoky crease brush from Urban Decay. Do they even still make these brushes? I wonder if Urban Decay still has their brush line. Oh my god, this color is deep. So I'm just very lightly picking that up. I don't want this to be too intense. I don't want it to be overly smoky. I still want it to be like a bright, colorful look, but I want to build up that dimension just a little bit before we go in with the colors. Those mattes build up great. They build up on each other without being patchy, which is something I look for when I test out palettes, to see if the mattes can layer on top of each other rather than leaving patchiness behind. They don't cling to each other. They don't blend well together. Everything here blends out to give me a gradient from the deepest color to the lightest shade we have in that crease line. And that is exactly what I need. All right, time for the shimmer. I'm gonna go for it and use Fuchsia Shock. And I'm using a stiffer eye shader brush. This is from Smashbox. It's the full coverage eye shader brush. Yes. So this color picks up really nicely. I'm not getting any kickback from the pan, which is great. It picks up great on the brush. And we're just gonna press that onto the lid and sweep it across. that is actually applying really well. No issue, no fallout. Perfect. Honestly, I think this looks great. The eyeshadow applied really well. I'm just gonna go around the edge of the color now in the crease, just using a clean blending brush, just to make sure we don't have any harsh lines and everything is nice and blended. And yeah, that blends really nicely. So we already used 4 colors and chef's kiss, beautiful. Do I want to do anything else to that? I don't know. Let me go ahead and apply foundation and then we'll figure out if we want to do anything else to the eyes. Alright guys, so I applied mascara and I did my face and all that good stuff, and I have black eyeliner on my waterline. This is from Makeup by Mario as well. It's the Master Pigment Pro Pencil in super black, and it is super black. That is a nice black. If it lasts on my waterline without irritating, winner. Anyway, there's no brow highlight in this palette that I'm going to use, so I'm just gonna go in with a regular vanilla shade and pop that on my brow bone area and blend it downwards. This looks really pretty, guys. Should I put something on the lower lash line that's a little bit different? You know, I like to mix it up on the lower lash line. Alright, I'm gonna go in with the shade Dragonfly. I think that would be pretty. And I'm just gonna pick that up on the edge of a small brush and apply that on my lower lash line all the way in. Ooh, that's getting into my eyes. Okay, that's not fun. Ooh, child. I'm gonna dampen my brush a little bit because I hate when eyeshadow gets in my eyes. So to help with that, just a little spritz, tame it. I'm gonna do that again. It applies nicely dry, so I have no issue with the pigmentation. But yeah, applying it wet helps with the flakiness of the color, especially on the lower lash line area. That is a really pretty color. Alright, let's blend out the edges really quickly with a clean brush, just to make sure it's not harsh under there. And then I'll apply mascara and we'll be right back to show you the finished look. So here you have it, guys. This is the finished first look, and I really love how this looks. Up close you can see the eyeshadows applied really well. I only had fallout with Dragonfly. It's a bit flaky and it does have fallout to it, so I would use it damp or use a really sticky base, because yeah, that's gonna go flying everywhere. But what do you guys think? Pretty first look, right? Yes. Alright, before I take this look off, I kind of want to play around with it a bit and see if we can amp it up with one of the other shades. So I'm thinking of going in with the red to see how the red would look with this kind of base color. So we're going to grab the shade Saturnalia. So I'm just using an eye shader brush again, and we're just going to pop that right over where we have the pink. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see. Can you see the red and the pink? Oh, that's pretty. That is actually really pretty. It's almost making it a neon metallic red, which I think that looks stunning, guys. What do you think? You know what I'm gonna try to do? I'm gonna apply this damp to see if we can get more pigmentation, since we are applying it over the pink. Let's see what we can do. The red shade is a little less creamy than the pink. The pink is very smooth, almost feels like a cream eyeshadow. The red is a little bit drier and it has kind of micro shimmer to it. But look, that applied really well, and with the pink as a base to it, it's giving it this kind of radioactive vibe. Isn't this stunning? Listen, this is really pretty. I really like this. Stunning. And I like to remix the looks that I do so I can give you a few options and we're not just stuck with a couple of looks, but you see some remixes as well. So here's the red Saturnalia, and that is applied over the pink, of course, so it's gonna give it a little bit of a different vibe, but it still looks oh yes, I prefer red over pink any day, and I think this looks really nice. So here's another option using the red instead of the pink, and I think both looks are really nice. All right, should we try to do even more? I feel like I want to do the most with this look just to get us started, like to get our creative juices flowing. So I'm thinking of, yeah, I'm gonna now go in with Cosmic, which is the duochrome here, and I'm gonna dampen my brush because this is more of a flaky shade, again, kind of like the dragonfly one that got all up in my eye, and I'm just gonna pop that on. Oh yes, baby, pop that on the center. You need to get in here and see what's going on. Look at this, look at this. It's great to layer up colors, especially when you have such a large palette. Just go ahead and play around. That layered over the red is spectacular. I tried to layer it over the pink, like swatching it, but it didn't look as great because it has more of like a sharp red base. It kind of dulled the pink, but over this red, yes, that is nice, right? That is stunning. Can you guys see what I am seeing? I'm hoping you're seeing this. That is so pretty. All right, we want to do more. We're still gonna do more. I'm gonna grab Galactic Gold, and you know where I'm gonna pop that? On the inner tear duct. We want to see how these shades work on the inner tear duct, and that shade is one of the lightest shades. There are two lighter champagne-y golds in here. I don't know if you have a much lighter skin tone, like if you're really pale, if this is gonna show up like an inner tear duct highlight. You know, you want an inner tear duct highlight. I think this may be more of a lid shade for you, but for richer skin, that is a perfect inner tear duct highlight because it's not too bright and stark. Listen, that is so pretty on the inner tear duct. It just gives a little lift without being too intense. Like, let's see it from a distance, girl. Ooh, you see, like, it's like, hey, here's my inner tear duct, but I'm not too loud. I think this is beautiful. What do you guys think? Let me know, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean this off, and we can do another look or a few. Alright, eyes are ready to go again, so I think this time around I'm gonna do a green look. So I'm gonna go in with the shade Megabyte, which is this green one here. This shade is a little flakier, but we're gonna apply it dry first just to see how it applies without any help. And it applies fine as long as you press your brush down onto your lid. And this primer actually holds on to color pretty well. So this is picking up nicely, but again, it's more on the flaky side, which is not my preference. Fuchsia, the fuchsia shade was actually, to me, a better texture, but that's just me. We're just gonna pop that on, and that actually applied really well. My eyes are so mad right now, guys, I can't even tell you. I'm gonna dampen my brush just a little bit, and we're gonna apply it damp to see how it goes. Let me show you, it does flake up in the actual pan, so I want to avoid that. So we're just gonna apply that ooh, yes. So applying it damp gives it that more metallic look and less of a flaky shadow, which I prefer. A more metallic look or a more satiny shine rather than a flaky shadow. So alright, that looks great. So I have fallout over my face, and I expect that from these flaky shades, so just be mindful of that. I'm just gonna go around the edge really quick just to blend it out and soften the edges. This eye is really upset, so don't pay attention to it. We're gonna go in with the dark purple. So this one is Smoked Amethyst. Alright, so this purple shade is more of like a blackened base with purple shimmer to it, so that's why I'm using it on the outer V. And it's actually applying and blending like a deep purple matte, or like a blackened purple. Can you guys see that? Yeah, it's just applying as a matte would, which is what I expected from this shade anyway. So I'm just gonna blend out the edge. My eye is angry and I'm not gonna keep angering it right now, so we're gonna keep this look pretty simple. I hope you guys can see how the purple applied. I'm gonna go in with some of the Major Mahogany just to help mattify the purple. So I'm kind of going back and forth between the two to add some mattifying effect to the purple, but not really add too much color, you know? I want to maintain that black and purple because I think it works well with the green. All right, let's blend out the edge with a clean brush. And I think that looks good, guys. I think that looks really nice. This is actually a really pretty look. I think I'm gonna go in with a bit of gold standard right here, and I'm gonna pop that on the inner tear duct area and pull it inwards. This one is more of a satin, not a satin finish, but this one has that creamy texture that gives that metallic look without being flaky. So on the inner tear duct, it looks very similar to the green we have on the lid, so it kind of just flows into it, and I think that works great. Let me do the mascara thing and I'll be back again to show you the finished look. Alright, so I did mascara, I did the same brow bone highlight, and I also did the same eyeliner on my waterline. I think we should go in with the other purple in the palette. So that guy is Violet Void. This one has a much better texture. It's not as flaky, so I'm gonna try it out dry first. Just on the outer lower lash line. Ew, that's pretty. So it's like a deep purple with pink sparkle to it, but it looks like it's gonna be a very shimmery from the pan. But once you apply it, look at that. It's like a okay, I didn't expect it to be that pretty. Look at that. That is a pretty purple, and it offsets the green. So oh my god, this looks so good. That offsets the green beautifully. So here we have the second look, well, the second full look completely done. And I think this looks great. I really love the green. I love that purple. And I love how that black and purple even applied to the outer V. The only thing I'm gonna warn against is that the green shade is flaky. What's the name of that damn shade that tried to attack me? Megabyte. Megabyte tried to bite me, okay? It's flaky. I have fallout all over my face. I had to go over with my foundation. So definitely use more of a damp brush with it. Use a sticky base and perhaps do your foundation after, which is what I usually do anyway to avoid that. But it's very sparkly, as you can see. It gives a really beautiful sparkle to the eyes. It pairs beautifully with gold standard, I think, and that purple. So here's the second look, guys. Let me know what you think about this one. And then for the next look, I think we're gonna do something very subtle, very wearable, but like more subtle, more subdued, a little bit more neutral. All right, before we move on, I want to kind of jazz this up a little bit to see what else we can add to it. Even though it's like really sparkly and shimmery on its own, maybe we can go in with Dragonfly again. So I learned my lesson. I'm gonna dampen my brush with Dragonfly because she wants to go everywhere. And I'm just gonna pop that on the, ooh, baby. Okay, so this is more of a multi-chrome with a bit of blue and purple to it. Can you see, like, can you pick up on the difference with this color? I think that actually works pretty nicely with the green as well. That is actually really stunning. I really like that, and maybe we can pull it all over the lid so you can see it even more. I think this Dragonfly shade is gorgeous. Okay, it's getting too thick right now. She's thick. She is getting clumpy on the lids, but I just want to give you guys an idea of what this would look like all over the lids. Let's blend out the edge a little bit because we're layering up colors and things are getting a little crepey here. But the Dragonfly shade is a dual chrome with green, a little purple. It's not truly like a red base. You can get a little more green to it, which I think is stunning. Let's use a little bit of Lunar Champagne to see what that does. So that is the lighter champagne shade, and we're just gonna pop that on the center. That gives a beautiful shine actually. I think we're gonna use this in the neutral look as a halo look. That is pretty. It's not gonna show up too much on this eye because there's a lot going on, but here you have like a different idea of mixing a couple of the shades on the lid. So you can go in with the green golds and even the Dragonfly shade, and definitely that purple on the lower lash line still looks great. So let's go ahead and torture my eyes some more and do a third look. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do the neutral look, but I was looking at the shades in the palette. I swatched the ones that I kind of haven't used yet. So there are two bronzes. We have Bronze Nebula and then plain old bronze. So this is Bronze Nebula. And bronze is a little bit more on the orangey side. It's definitely much warmer. And then Bronze Nebula is more on the, I would say like a pinky bronze. It's not really pinky, it's more peach, but it has a little bit more pink to it than bronze. And then this shade is Corruption, which is a multi-chrome or duochrome that shifts a little bit bronze. Do you see that? And then it has more of a pinky rosy red base. So just so you know, there are two very similar bronze shades in the palette. While I'm at it, I went ahead and swatched the two champagnes in the palette. So we have Lunar Champagne and then Galactic Gold. They look very similar as well. Galactic Gold just has a hint more green to it, like a little touch of green. It's a little bit more sparkly, but these two are very similar as well. All right, so we're back and primed, and we're gonna do a neutral look like I said. So those two bronze shades that I showed you that look very similar, we're gonna put them on the eye and see what happens. So I'm gonna start out with the shade Bronze Nebula, and I'm just gonna apply that directly on the lid. Yeah, that's simple enough. Nothing crazy at all. And then I'm gonna go in with the bronze shade, so this one here, and let's put that right next to that shade. So the bronze shade, like I said before, is a little bit more orange, and it does show as a little bit more orange, but it looks almost dead on the same as Bronze Nebula. So there's not too much of a difference between the two shades. I don't think they both needed to be in the palette. That's fine, I'm just blending around the edges. And now I'm gonna go in with Corruption, which is that duochrome, and I'm gonna apply that on the outer part of the lid. Just what I thought. This is not gonna be that much different from the other shades. It's just gonna have a slight pink to it because it is a duochrome that has like a golden bronze and then a little bit of a pinky shift. So I think these shades really work well together. They look very similar, and there's not gonna be too much of a difference to them, but it gives a little, maybe a little bit of dimension. I don't see too much, but here we are. Now let's go in with the dark matte Major Mahogany, and we're just gonna pop that on the outer V. This should blend in pretty well with Corruption because Corruption has that rosy hue to it. So this should look pretty nice. Yeah, so I think that pulls out the rosiness of Corruption, and it really goes well with the other shades too. It just makes them look a little bit warmer, a little bit more bold on the eyes. So let's just blend. Nice. All right, so I want to do something a little bit different. So I'm gonna go in with a shade we haven't used yet. This shade is Electron. It's more on the rosy purple side, and I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that shade and run it on the edge of the crease to kind of liven up that little outer V a little bit. This shade has a little bit of a violet purple to it. That actually looks really nice. Because I want to get, yeah, like I think it looks good, like just to have that little purple, but it's a little rosy, so it ties in with the rest of the shades. And I'll go back in and add a little bit more of the matte shade just to go over that and darken that up a little bit more again and remove the shimmer from the outer V. Yes, that pop is just a little bit different, just a little bit interesting. I like that. And I think I'm gonna use Lunar Champagne on the inner tear duct. So let's just pop that right on the inner tear duct. And these champagnes work so great on my skin tone. They brighten the eyes like I said before, but they're not too stark, and this actually blends in really well with the bronzy tones. I think that looks stunning. You know what? I want to go in with Cosmic again, which is the dual chrome kind of pinky champagne. And I'm just gonna apply that on the lid to add a little sparkle to the bronzes we have down. Yes, that just gives a little bit more shine. This one is more flaky. It gives a little bit more sparkle to the eye, but it doesn't change the color so much. It just shines that up a little bit. I really like that. All right, mascara time, and we'll be back again. All right, so we have our mascara on, and I think this looks pretty good on its own, but we're gonna go ahead and do a little something on the lower lash line. So we have Smoked Amethyst, which is that black and purple, and then we have Violet Void. Yes. So let's use the Violet Void first. That's the purple with the shimmer that actually shows up a lot more purple than it looks in the pan. That is so pretty. I really like this shade. It has a little sparkle in it, but it's not that flaky type of texture. But you still have to be careful with it. It can get in your eyes, but it still applies smoothly without you having to dampen your brush. And I think that purple is amazing. All right, let's go in with the Smoked Amethyst just on the outer lower lash line, just to smoke that out a bit, and boom. I think that looks great. All right, let's zoom it out. All right guys, so here is the final more subdued look. It's still very sparkly and shimmery, and it's a little bit colorful too, but it's a little bit toned down. It's using more of the bronzy tones in the palette, and I think it looks pretty. I do like this a lot. I just don't think we needed both bronzes. They kind of accomplish the same thing, but that Corruption shade is one of my favorite shades from her existing lineup. I love that shade so much, and I think it pairs well in this palette. I really like it. And this purple on the lower lash line, I think that has to be one of my favorite shades in the palette because it just looks so pretty on the lower lash line. It has a little bit more blue to it, so it's not like a red purple. It's a beautiful blue tone purple, and I love that kind of purple. I like a red tone violet shade. I like a little, you know, a little something. So here you have it. Here's the final look. Let me know what you think, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap up with my final thoughts. Alright now guys, you've seen swatches, you've seen 3 demonstrations, and I put this palette to work. I applied every single shade, so I have a pretty well-rounded view of this palette right now, and I'm going to give you my thoughts in my 5 P's. Alright, so the first thing up is the price point. This palette retails for $78. I know, that is so surprising for Pat McGrath because usually her Mothership 10-pan palettes retail for $125. Even her eyeshadow quads retail for $65, at least the older versions, the ones that released for holiday last year. And then her 6-pan eyeshadow palettes also retailed for $65. Even though the original release was $55, that's the price I got mine at, but she had a price increase and she was selling those 6-pan palettes for $65, and then the holiday quads from last year were also $65. The new holiday quads for 2020 are $58. So we've kind of been seeing a consistent price point from Pat McGrath, except for the time when she veered into the little mini palettes. I think those are on sale right now, but those are $24, and I think they had 5 shades in there that you could try out, but they were in really tiny mini pans. So it was a way to try out Pat McGrath without breaking the bank, and I think that's exactly what she's doing here with this palette, which is why the price point is $78. So with the holiday season, a lot of brands tend to be more playful with their products that they release because they're limited edition. They're not going to be around for a long time, so they can be a little bit more experimental, and I feel like Pat McGrath is doing exactly that with the price point and with the packaging and with the whole layout, just to get a vibe for what people think, what the feedback is, and that way she can feel out the market to see what people want from her. Plus, with holiday launches, a lot of people that don't necessarily purchase from these brands are going to make their purchases now. They may even receive some of these as gifts from family members or friends that know they're into beauty and want to give them something a little bit more luxurious for the holidays. So I think Pat McGrath is hitting all those points. One, she's given you a taste of a different side of Pat McGrath at a cheaper price point, and she's given you more eyeshadows in a different packaging, and this makes it a little bit more accessible for the regular consumer that may not have delved into Pat McGrath because of the high price point. So I think it's a great way to, like, you know, test the waters and see what comes of this palette. Now, this retails again for $78, and it contains 18 eyeshadow shades for a total size of 19.8 grams or 0.69 ounces total. So each of these eyeshadows are roughly 0.38 ounces a piece, which is smaller than a small eyeshadow on the market. So think about the average size eyeshadow on the market in singles. Those are 0.05 ounces. So think about the MAC singles or an Urban Decay single, and even like the Sydney Grace singles or the Anastasia Beverly Hills singles. Those usually range from 0.05 to 0.06 ounces, and that's the average size of a small eyeshadow on the market. Typically, eyeshadow palettes will have around the same amount of product per pan, so that 0.05 ounces, but a lot of eyeshadow palettes have less product per pan because you're getting it in a palette form. You're getting more shades to try out, and they have to save costs somewhere, so they're gonna give you less product. Pat McGrath actually gives you a significant amount of product in her palettes, her mothership palettes and her eyeshadow quads. So the ones with her regular size eyeshadows are 0.07 ounces. So you're getting a ton of product. So each of these eyeshadow pans end up being a little bit more than half the size of her other eyeshadow pans in her other palettes, which I think is still a great deal because you're getting 18 shades here. So you're getting a ton of shades to choose from, and you're getting a pretty decent amount of product because 0.038 is not a little bit of product. And with her formulation, they're not really powdery or loose, so it's not like you're gonna go through these eyeshadows as quickly as you would, say, a Lorac formulation or an Anastasia Beverly Hills formulation, because those shadows are really powdery and they kick up a ton of product. So price-wise, size-wise, I think you're getting a good value for money considering that this is Pat McGrath Labs. So if you always thought that Pat McGrath was outside of your price range, this might be a good one for you to pick up and try out. Next P up is purchasing. So this is available now on the Sephora website, and I believe it will be available in store for the holiday season. You can also purchase this off the Pat McGrath website, and you can get 10% off. Pat McGrath always has a sale for 10% off. There's also her holiday sale from last year. I know she did 25% off, so keep your eye out. You might be able to get this for 25% off because it is not currently sold out on either website. So I think they made tons of stock, or people aren't buying as much Either way, you might luck out and get this at a cheaper price point. Keep an eye out. Also, the Sephora sale is coming up, so you can get 10 to 20% off depending on the level of Beauty Insider you are, and that starts October 30th and runs through November 9th, and there are different dates for different tiers again of Beauty Insider. So that is currently where you can purchase this. With Sephora, I believe you're gonna get free shipping based on the price point, but also patmcgrath.com, you do get free shipping as well, but the shipping takes forever. With Sephora, they've gotten better with their shipping. I've been able to get my products now within 3 to 5 days. It isn't as fast as it used to be, but it's gotten better. But Pat McGrath, listen, you will wait a while. I think I waited 2 weeks to get my palette. It took a while, and it is actually coming from New Jersey, so that was surprising. So just keep that in mind in case you are considering picking this up, especially if you're gonna pick it up for a gift. Now let's talk about the packaging. So my palette came in a little black envelope. It's a matte finish and it has this little bubble wrap detail to it. I think this is really sophisticated for a bubble envelope, right? A cushion mailer. This is cute. This is definitely Pat McGrath. So it came really secure in that bubble wrapper, and then we have a pink and gold design on both the box and the palette itself. The box has all the details with the ingredients and, you know, the size and information and all that good stuff. The box and the palette have the same design, but I think this might have something to do with Greek mythology. Am I wrong? Correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, it's a gold and light pink design. Now I'll just mention the ingredients really quickly while we're at it, even though I'm not gonna do a deep dive. That is just not my thing, but I do like to point out certain ingredients in case you guys avoid them or you were curious. So for the majority of the shimmer shades, we have mica and silica as the main ingredients. For the matte shades, we have mica and talc. Talc is also in the shimmer shades, but it's lower down in the ingredient list. We also have dimethicone in a few of these shades, as well as synthetic fluoroflogopite, which is synthetic mica, which is a great way to get that shine without using glitter. It gives you that chunky, shimmery look. So there is no PET in this ingredient list from what I can see. So if you avoid those like I do, that is a great thing. The open jar symbol indicates 12 months, so you have 12 months to go through this product. This is also made in the USA of US and imported ingredients. So yay for US based jobs. So here we have the palette packaging. I think, okay, here's the thing. A lot of people have been mentioning that this looks cheap. I don't think it looks cheap. I really like this packaging, but I might be in the minority. A lot of people are used to Pat McGrath and that luxurious heavyweight lacquered plastic packaging with the beveled mirror in the lid. Gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. It does look and feel luxurious when you get one of those palettes. But can I tell you something? I'm not traveling with those. I'm not pulling those out all the time because they're big and heavy and bulky. And listen, okay? I cannot. And since I keep my palettes in the boxes because that's where the beauty lies, I don't really find myself reaching for them as much because I keep the box because the artwork is on the box for the lacquered packaging. With this palette, the artwork is already there. It's beautiful by itself. I can throw the I can throw this box out and not care about it because I have everything I need on this palette. So this packaging does depart a bit from her lacquered packaging that we're used to for her mothership palettes and from the holiday quads, but it's still in line with like her 6-pan palettes where she has the bifold with the bungee cord. You remember those? So she's done cardboard packaging before. This is nothing new. She's done this and I like it. I think the cardboard is high quality. It is more of a matte finish with the design printed on, but this part of the design with the eye and the gold bars, this is actually a sticker, and you can feel that it's a sticker because you can feel the edges. They're not flush with the packaging. which to me is fine. I do like that. I know people were like, oh, that's cheap. I don't think it's cheap. It doesn't feel cheap. It's well secured on there. It's not dusty or linty. And on the back, we also have the shadow names instead of the little insert, which I think is an improvement. I absolutely love that. Thank you, Pat McGrath. Again, I think she is kind of tipping her toe in, seeing what the water feels like with these different improvements or changes. I shouldn't say improvements, they're improvements for me, but other people might not see it that way. I think it's an improvement, and I really love having the names on the back of the palette. And if you are just a little bit like, oh my God, how do you line them up? Just know that gold standard is this one here, the gold, and then Saturnalia is the red one. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the shade names. Like, come on now. Come on now. You can pinpoint certain key shades in the palette and then line up the other shade names accordingly. Plus, these only come in handy when we're doing like makeup tutorials or you want to tell somebody what's on your eyelids. So I think it's very helpful to have it on the back of the palette instead. Now, the other thing that people were talking about was the little ribbon. So there are two ribbons on the side, and a couple of people have popped those already. Now, to me, that's not such a big deal because most palettes that are cardboard don't have the little ribbon anyway. So if they pop or they break, just cut them off and be on your way. But I can see how that could be an issue if they're that fragile. But, you know, it is what it is. The lid will hold up with the ribbons, but once the ribbons are gone, then it's going to flop over and you're going to have to hold it in place if you use these mirrors to apply your makeup, which people still hold their mirrors anyway, right? So is that such a big deal? I don't think that's a big deal. I think people are just nitpicking. And then you get a really large mirror. I'm just going to peel back my plastic covering to show you. And look at it. Oh yes, that is great clarity. It's a huge mirror. This is perfect if you use mirrors in palettes to apply your makeup. I don't, so I'm gonna leave my little plastic protection over that because that helps to also like protect these eyeshadows that are on a black backing, and a little bit of flakiness can happen and make the palette look a little bit messy, but the material is easy to clean. It doesn't stain, which I appreciate. So you can easily just wipe and clean the excess product, the kick up that you get from using this palette, which you do get some kick up because some of these shades are glittery. So there you have it. That's the packaging. I like it. I know some people have mentioned they don't like it because they don't think it's luxurious, but at the price point for 18 shades with the amount of product you're getting, it's Pat McGrath, I think it looks pretty nice and I really like it. It's sleek, it's thin, it's not too heavy, but it's still weighted. It doesn't feel like a throwaway palette. I like it a lot. All right, now let's move on to the final two P's, which are product and performance. What do I think of this eyeshadow palette? All right, you saw the demos, you saw the swatches. Beautiful. I think these eyeshadows are stunning. They're beautiful. I don't like the color story because it's not my vibe, but I think this flows in line with Pat McGrath and what we expect from Pat McGrath. Pat McGrath to me creates very sultry and sexy color stories. It's very editorial and she loves sparkle, and sparkle it does. There are only 3 mattes in this palette, which you already know I'm a matte girl. I love a good matte, so not my favorite thing about this palette, first of all. And all 3 of the mattes are more on the mauvey dusty rose. We have more of a mid-tone mauvey purple, and then we have that deep red cranberry shade. And I mean, those work enough with the other shades in the palette because we have a ton of mauves, a few pinks, and a few purples in this palette. So it works okay, but then you have the greens and the golds that I don't think those shades necessarily jive with. So I do think she could have included a couple more mattes, even a brown to offset the greens and the golds, because those would have paired better with those shades. So don't expect this to be an all-rounder palette. I think you're definitely gonna need to pull in other shades from other palettes or from your eyeshadow singles, which I don't mind doing. I do that a lot anyway. So that is not a big deal to me. There are also no brow bone shades here, unless you're gonna use like the champagnes, but I don't do that. So there are no light mattes in here, which is fine. Again, I can pull from other palettes. Just keep that in mind in case you're traveling with this or you think you're just gonna grab this and go. you may not get a full look out of this. You need to pull in other shades. Also, in the color story, like I showed you guys before, there are two bronzes that look very similar and two champagnes that also look very similar. I think that's an overkill, especially since she has so many bronzes and champagnes already in her lineup. So if you're an avid Pat McGrath collector, you probably have similar shades like 4 or 5 times over in your other palettes. So I think she could have done without including all the shades in here. I mean, they look different in the pans, but once you apply them, they look very similar, as you guys saw in the demonstration. And the other thing to mention is that 12 of the shades are from the Star Wars collection. That doesn't bother me because I didn't buy the Star Wars collection, and I know a lot of people weren't able to get their hands on the Star Wars collection. So that might not be an issue to you, and I think that was actually a great way to have these shades included in a palette where other people can get it now that didn't get their hands on the Star Wars collection. Or maybe you have the Star Wars collection but you want to keep them as collector pieces, so then you have this palette where you can now use the shades that are in there and save your collector's items for just that. And in addition, there are 2 repeat shades in here that are also from other palettes. So even though I didn't get the Star Wars collection, I have 2 shades in this palette that I already have. So that's Corruption and then Gold Standard. So those are in other palettes like I mentioned. And then the 6 new shades, again, there's a champagne that looks kind of similar to an existing palette. The Rosy Matte, to me, looks like it could be from Divine Rose or Divine Rose 2. So keep that in mind. There's some similar shades here. You will have similar shades in your collection if you have all the Pat McGrath palettes. I don't. I have a lot of them, but I'm okay with having the shades in this overall huge palette that I can just pull out and then pull in some of my favorite mattes and make a look. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's your call. If you like the color story and you want to have this as a palette, maybe you haven't tried Pat McGrath and you want to try out her eyeshadows, this is a great way to try out her eyeshadows at a price point that's a little bit more digestible, at least from my point of view. Now let's go into the actual product and the formulation of these shades. So with the matte shades, I mentioned this throughout like the demo. The matte rose shade and the matte mauve purple, those are actually really nice. They build up well. They're very smooth. The shade that is the deepest in the palette, the mahogany shade, is a little bit more gritty, a little bit drier to the touch, but it still applies really well. There's minimal fallout, minimal to no fallout depending on how you pick up the product on your brush. But there is minimal kick up in the pan. These are well pressed eyeshadows, so they're not loosely pressed, but they're not too hard pressed either. I think they're pressed well in the pan. They apply beautifully. There are a couple of different textures for the shimmers in this palette though, and you saw that again in the demonstration. So we have shades that are more smooth metallic frost shades that give you a beautiful sheen to the lid, and they apply beautifully. They apply almost like a cream eyeshadow, and when you touch them you actually feel that creaminess to the texture. So Fuchsia Shock is one of those shades. I think that feels amazing. And then Bronze and Corruption would be that similar texture. You have shades that have micro glitter in them. The 2 purples are the ones that jump out right away. This dark purple here comes off as a matte with shimmer, and as you buff it and blend it, it can even translate as more of a matte. So I've used that in the crease and that works really well, and I do like that. So that kind of offsets the mattes that are in this palette, but I still feel like this should have just been a deep matte. This purple shade here actually looks a lot better on the eyes than it does in the pan, and I keep sticking my nail in these damn pans. Anyway, this shade here is stunning. It's such a beautiful dark blue base purple, and it applies beautifully and it looks gorgeous on the eyes. I really like that shade, and the fallout again is minimal. However, there are a couple of shades that are very flaky, and let me tell you something, okay? Getting them in your eyes is no fun. I really did not like using those shades. So the shades that jump out right away, Gigabyte, which is the green one, and then Dragonfly. Is that Dragonfly? Yeah, I remember the shades. Those I know are just, I want to stay away from them. If I'm using them, I have to use them damp. I will never use these shades dry again because they are very, very flaky. So just be mindful of that. The other shades, like the champagne shade, Lunar Champagne, is that the name of it? Lunar Champagne is a little bit more on the sheer side. You do have to build that up, but it works beautifully on the inner tear duct, especially if you have like a tan skin tone. I think this is a great highlight shade, and that's what I love about Pat McGrath champagnes. They just work beautifully. They melt into the skin. They look like a skin show shade. You love how she names her shades, but this one is Lunar Champagne, but that works beautifully as well. The other gold shade, Galactic Gold, that is a beautiful topper shade. I think that works beautifully. It has a little bit of a green flash to it, but be mindful of that one too. It's a little bit more on the flaky side. And then we have shades like Cosmic, also a little bit more flaky, but it's not as bad as Dragonfly and Gigabyte, but I would still recommend using a damp brush with those or a sticky primer. The other shades, they work decently. They apply well enough. Like, they're decent shades. Are they Pat McGrath quality? Absolutely. I think the mattes are definitely in line with her other mattes. I think the shimmers, the shimmery shades, are in line with the other shimmery shades in her palette, and even the flaky ones are also reminiscent of her other formulation. So I don't think she dumbed down the formulation to give you a larger palette with more shades at a cheaper price point. I think she maintained the integrity of her formulation in this palette. But with that being said, none of her astral shades are in this palette, which is what people love from the Mothership 10 pan palettes. Those glittery astral toppers, people die for those because they're sparkly and they're luxurious, and I hate them with a passion. So I am happy they're not in this palette. But if you were looking to try out those special shades, yeah, they're not in this palette. You're gonna have to grab one of her quads with her special shades or grab one of the Mothership palettes. You know, no pressure here, but if you wanted to try those out, that's where they are. Personally, I despise those shades so much. They're so flaky, they get in my eye, they burn my eyes. And let me tell you how my eyes were burning after doing the demonstrations. Oh my god, my eyes burned, and they burned for days later, which is why I don't like the flaky shades. Now that happens with a ton of formulations. You get it in your eye, it's over for me. So I'm not gonna blame the formulation or blame the eyeshadows. I'm just saying I'd rather stay away from the flakiness. I don't like fallout on my skin, and these flaky shades are definitely gonna give you sparkle all over your skin. So just be mindful of that. Overall, I think these perform well, they apply well, except for the flaky shades that you have to be a little bit more careful with. Use a stiffer brush, use them damp, maybe spray them with a little bit of fixin' spray or use a glitter glue. It's up to you. You can even use your finger, which is probably the best approach to minimize the flakiness. I just don't like using my fingers, but I do think they perform well. I think they wear well. I didn't get fading or anything. They wear as any other Pat McGrath eyeshadow would wear. And I think if you love the color story, this is a great way to try out the formulation. If you're an avid Pat McGrath collector, you're already getting this, so I don't have to tell you nothing, okay? If you are trying to get into the hype of Pat McGrath and try her special shades, this does not have her special shades in here. Are they decent shimmer eyeshadows? Absolutely. Are they decent metallic eyeshadows? Sure. And the couple of mattes that you get are also decent, but I wouldn't like bust down the door and get this. Not at $78 and not for the color story with a couple of repeat shades in here or a couple of very close shades. I think it's worth it to try Pat McGrath, but I'm not in love with this palette. I like it, but I'm not in love with it. And I don't know how often I will pull this out just on my own to use it. I prefer the quad that I just picked up that I actually have on my eyes. And even this one, I was still a little on the fence about. So that goes to show you it's all about preference. So if you're into this color story, into these more purple and pinky shades, then this might be right up your alley, and you get to try out Pat McGrath at a pretty decent price point for the brand. Not overall, because on the market you can get a $50 palette that probably accomplishes the same thing, but this is Pat McGrath. You expected her to sell her palette for $50? Stop it. Stop it right now. So I do think it's a nice palette. It's just not a palette that I'm in love with. You know what I mean? Would I recommend you try it out? If you love the color story and if you have the budget, hey, go for it. I like it enough. I just didn't fall in love with it. So those are my final thoughts. I'm gonna go ahead and leave links on where you can pick them up, again available at Sephora and Pat McGrath online. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. I want to make sure that I am helping you guys in deciding what you want to invest in and what you want to try out. So hopefully that is exactly what I did here in this video. Hopefully me sacrificing my eyes and having them burn for days was worth it for you guys. And I will go ahead and leave links to my Instagram and Twitter where you can follow me along. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye guys.